If you have lost someone, and you find yourself at 3 in the morning, sitting up in a dark kitchen with a cup of tea you will not drink, asking a question you have never been able to say out loud, not where did they go in some general soft funeral program sense, but what is actually happening to them right now, tonight, this very minute, and is anything I am doing reaching them? And if every mass card you sent, and every rosary you knelt through, and every priest who patted your shoulder at the wake offered you only the words, "in a better place," while that question kept returning anyway, stay with me. Because there is a name for what you carry. There is an answer, and there is a reason you have never heard it stated cleanly. Pastoral surveys of American Catholics have repeatedly shown that the majority of practicing Catholics report never having received a clear parish explanation of what the Church actually teaches about purgatory, the particular judgment, or what a Mass offered for a soul mechanically does. And tens of millions of baptized Catholics in this country have drifted from active practice in the last quarter century, many of them carrying unresolved grief or unspoken shame as a primary, undelivered weight. That uncertainty you recognized at 3 in the morning? It has a name. It has an answer. And your parish has likely never delivered it cleanly. Surface comfort religion, the homiletic habit of substituting reassurance for precision, made sure of that. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what the Catholic Church teaches happens to a soul in the first moments after death, why no one has ever told you plainly, and the specific sacramental step you can take before sunrise. Subscribe so you never miss what the Catholic tradition has always known and what almost no one is saying out loud. To understand how this was buried, you have to go back almost 2,000 years to a stone bench in the Roman catacombs in the 2nd century, where a grieving Christian first scratched a prayer for the dead into the wall. Not a eulogy, not a goodbye, but a petition, present tense, addressed to a soul whose state could still be helped. Think about that for a moment. A mother, a brother, a wife, someone who had buried someone they loved, and the words they reached for were not memorial. They were operative. The earliest Christians did not say she is in a better place. They prayed for her. The distinction is the entire teaching. It is rooted further back in the 2nd book of Maccabees, chapter 12, verse 46, which states plainly that it is a holy and wholesome thought to pray for the dead, that they may be loosed from their sins. Tertullian, writing around the year 201 in his treatise De Corona, references annual oblations offered for the faithful departed as already established Christian custom. Already established. By the year 211, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraphs 1030 through 1032, describes purgatory not as a second hell, but as a final purification, a making ready of the soul for the vision of God. The mechanism is this: the soul, at the moment death takes the body, is not lost, not floating, not in suspension. It is met. The Church calls this the particular judgment, Catechism paragraphs 1021 and 1022. There are 3 possible states: beatitude, purification, or definitive separation, and the tradition has held for 2 millennia that most souls enter purification, and that purification can be aided by the prayers, the masses, and the offered sufferings of the living. Read that again. Aided. By you. Here is the part that should detonate. This is not advanced theology. This is not an obscurity. The Council of Florence affirmed it in 1439. The Council of Trent codified it again in 1563. Augustine wrote of praying for his mother Monica in Book 9 of the Confessions in the year 397, a son, kneeling beside the body of his mother, asking the Church to remember her at the altar. The teaching existed before the printing press, before the English language, before the parish your great-grandmother was baptized in. The simplicity is the scandal. The answer is embarrassingly clear. And almost no one alive today has heard it stated plainly from a pulpit. In 35 years standing at the bedsides of the dying, I have watched this teaching do what no platitude has ever done. A woman I will call Margaret came to me 3 months after her husband died. He had collapsed in the driveway. There were no last rites. She had been to 4 grief counselors and 2 grief support groups, and she could tell you exactly what every one of them had said and exactly what none of them had been able to give her. She told me she had stopped sleeping past 3. She told me she had begun avoiding her own bedroom. When I sat with her at the parish office and explained in plain language what a single Mass offered for him actually does, that the Catechism, paragraph 1371, teaches the Mass applies the merits of Christ's sacrifice to the particular soul named, that this is not symbolic, not therapeutic, but operative. She stopped crying in a way I cannot describe except to say her shoulders dropped 2 inches. She had a job now. Grief had been given an instrument. 2 weeks later, she told me she had slept through the night for the first time since the driveway. What was carved into stone in the 2nd century is the same thing your parish stopped saying out loud sometime in the last 40 years. The mechanism the Church teaches goes further. St. Catherine of Genoa, writing around the year 1500 in her treatise on Purgatory, described the soul in purification not as one being punished, but as one being clarified, suffering not God's wrath, but its own readiness for God, the particular pain of love finally seeing itself in full light. Catechism paragraph 1031 echoes this. The soul you love is not gone. The soul you love is becoming. From the Didache, written around the year 90, through the documents of the Second Vatican Council, the Church has taught what it calls the communion of saints, Catechism paragraphs 946 through 962. 3 states of one body, living, purifying, glorified. One Church, under one head. The dead in purification are not elsewhere. They are with you. Distance in this tradition is a category that does not apply. Your prayer at this kitchen table arrives. Now stay with me, because here is where the story turns toward you specifically. There is no single answer to the pain you are carrying. There is your answer. And the wrong answer to your particular type of suffering will deepen the wound, not close it. So identify yourself. Type 1, the uncertain mourner. You lost someone. You do not know their state. Your prayers feel like they evaporate before they reach a ceiling. The wrong response, the one you have been given 100 times, is there in heaven now. That sentence flattens the labor and leaves you holding a rosary with nothing for it to do. Type 2, the last rites wound. Someone you loved died suddenly, alone, without a priest, without confession, without the sacraments. You have carried a private terror for years about what happened to them. The wrong response is vague reassurance. The right one involves the Church's teaching on perfect contrition, Catechism paragraph 1452, which states that perfect contrition, sorrow rooted in love of God, obtains forgiveness even where sacramental confession was impossible, and the operation of God's mercy outside the visible sacraments. Read that paragraph slowly. The Church does not teach that the unanointed are lost. The Church has never taught that. Type 3, the lapsed returner. You have been away 5 years, 20, 40. Long enough that something inside you stopped counting. Long enough that you flinch when you drive past a church. The wrong response is just come back, it's fine. Because that sentence collapses the gravity you actually need acknowledged. The right one is the specific mechanics of confession after long absence. Identified your type? Hold it in mind, because what frees one of you would rewound another. There is no single answer. There is your answer. And here is where the enemy enters the frame. The teaching the Church has held for 2,000 years was never repealed. There was no council that abolished purgatory, no encyclical that retired the particular judgment. The Catechism still reads what it has always read. What changed was the delivery. Sometime in the late 20th century, in parish after parish, the vocabulary of specific Catholic theology was quietly retired from the pulpit. The funeral homily that should have named Purgatory said in a better place instead. The Catechism class that should have explained the 4 last things spent its hour on community. The grief group that should have placed a mass card in someone's hand placed a tissue. Major sociological surveys of practicing Catholics have repeatedly documented that roughly half cannot articulate core Eucharistic teaching, and the gap on purgatory is, by every available pastoral measure, larger. No one banned the teaching, they just stopped saying it. And here is the second twist, the one that should reframe everything you have been told. The suppression is not a conspiracy. There was no secret meeting. There is no villain bishop. The answer was buried by something more devastating than malice. It was buried by structure. Specific theology requires training, repetition, and the willingness to make a congregation uncomfortable for 90 seconds before consoling them. Vague comfort requires none of these. A priest with 40 minutes on a Sunday morning to reach everyone in the pews, the grieving widow, the bored teenager, the visiting in-law will, week after week, be selected by his own pastoral economy toward palatability. The seminary that trained him spent more hours on counseling models than on the 4 last things. The diocesan workshops that shaped his preaching emphasized accessibility. None of this was malicious. All of it was inevitable. No single homily caused the gap. 1,000 small substitutions did. The doctrine remained. The vocabulary went quiet. And the vocabulary is what reaches you. The title of this video says the answer has changed. It hasn't. Only the delivery has. And the delivery is what reached you. This is where the story changes, because something has begun to happen. Quietly, without announcement, the laity have started reaching back over the heads of the last 40 years of soft homilies. Requests for offered masses are rising. Lay confraternities for the holy souls are growing. The Gregorian Masses, 30 consecutive masses offered for one named soul, a practice documented since St. Gregory the Great around the year 590, in his dialogues. Book 4 are being requested by people whose pastors never mentioned them. They are finding the old prayer cards in their grandmother's drawers. They are reading the Catechism on their phones at red lights. The faithful are finding what the pulpit stopped saying. And then there are the returners. A man I will call David sat down in my confessional after 23 years away. He had rehearsed the sentence in his car for 40 minutes before walking in. He told me later he had driven past the church 3 times, and on the 3rd pass he forced himself to park before he could change his mind. He believed, the way the lapsed almost always believe, that what he had done specifically had closed the door for him while it remained open for everyone else. The Catechism, paragraphs 1,446 through 1,452, teaches plainly that there is no such expiration. Pope Francis, in the bull Misericordiae Vultus, articulated again what the Church has always taught, that no soul is beyond mercy. The mechanics are unchanged. Walk in. Sit down. Say, "Bless me, Father. It has been 23 years." The priest is trained for that exact sentence. My name is Father Thomas. I was a parish priest for 35 years in working-class American Catholic parishes, and what I watched happen to people who carried these questions alone for decades is the only reason I am willing to say what I am saying now. The shame David carried was not theological. It was institutional, and it was wrong. He walked into that confessional believing the door was closed. He walked out, and his face was different. He told me later, weeks later, that the hollowness behind his sternum, the one he had carried for so long, he had stopped noticing it was simply gone. Here is the 3rd twist, and this is the one I need you to hold. The proof that these mechanisms still work is not pending. The proof is the entire tradition. Augustine documented in the 4th century what offered prayers did for his mother. Gregory the Great documented in the 6th what consecutive masses did for a particular soul. Catherine of Genoa documented in the 15th what the experience of purification looked like from the inside. Thérèse of Lisieux documented in the 19th what offering small sufferings for the souls in purgatory accomplished. Padre Pio, in the mid-20th century at San Giovanni Rotondo, sat in a confessional for 10 and 12 hours a day and watched lapsed Catholics walk in carrying 20 and 30 and 40 years of absence and walk out carrying none of it, 2,000 years. The same answer. The same instruments. The same results. Nothing has been disproven. Nothing has been replaced. Only the announcement has gone quiet. And here is what makes the suppression devastating rather than merely sad. The answer is not hidden in some obscure theological library. It is in the Catechism your parish bookshelf carries. It has been in Scripture for 2,000 years. It has been written into the documented lives of the saints whose feast days your parish still keeps on the calendar. The communion of saints is named in the creed you recite at Mass. The mercy is named in every absolution. The four last things, death, judgment, heaven, and purgatory, are named in the catechetical tradition the Church has never repudiated. And it has still never been delivered to you in a way that actually quieted your question. Earlier generations of Catholics received this teaching clearly. Medieval parishes preached the four last things every Advent. Counter-Reformation catechesis treated purgatory and the particular judgment as core, not peripheral. Pre-Vatican II funeral rites included the Dies Irae, a sequence that named the particular judgment plainly and prayed the soul through it. The office of the dead was prayed in households, not only in monasteries. November was, throughout most of Catholic history, the month explicitly oriented to the holy souls, and that orientation was not sentimental. It was operative. The historical pastoral record is unambiguous. The teaching was delivered. People understood what they were doing when they offered a Mass. They understood what they were doing when they prayed for the dead. They understood that grief was not only a feeling to be managed, but a labor to be performed for someone they still belonged to. The knowledge existed. The proof exists. Earlier Catholics received it. Your parish has not given it to you that way, not because the teaching changed, but because the delivery did. So here is what tonight asks of you. If you are type 1, the uncertain mourner, call your parish office tomorrow. Request a Mass intention by name. The customary stipend is small. The Catechism paragraph is 1,371. That single act does what no grief group can do. Write the name on a piece of paper before you call. Hold it in your hand while you dial. If you are type 2, the last rites wound, pray the office of the dead tonight, or even 1 decade of the Rosary, named, offered specifically. The Church teaches that perfect contrition and the mercy of God reach further than the sacramental visibility we can see. Paragraph 1452 is your paragraph. Read it. If you are type 3, the lapsed returner, find the confession schedule of any Catholic parish within driving distance. Sit down, say the sentence. The priest is trained for it. You do not have to feel ready. You only have to do the next concrete thing. The Catechism, paragraphs 1030 through 1032, reads tonight what it read in 1992, what those catacomb walls said in the year 200. The teaching has not changed. The theological principle still stands. The soul does not care about pastoral economies or institutional language gaps. The mercy is still there, exactly as it has been for 2,000 years. There is a finger in a Roman catacomb in the 2nd century, tracing a name into stone, a name we will never know, etched by a hand we will never see, addressed to a soul still in the keeping of the Church. There is a hand, tonight, picking up a phone to request a Mass for someone whose face you can still see, whose voice you still hear when the house is quiet. The same gesture, the same church, the same soul, still waiting. The answer has not changed. The only thing that has changed is whether someone finally tells you. And tonight, finally, someone has. This content is for educational and pastoral reflection purposes, only for personal spiritual guidance. Please consult a qualified Catholic priest or spiritual director.